space today?
Cannabis real estate, cannabis business opportunity.
Perfect. So Hello, welcome to Capitalizing on Cannabis. We're so happy that you're here today. I am pleased to welcome Bob Irish. He's here today, a business broker. We're going to be talking about selling or buying a cannabis-related business. So Bob has been in the industry since 2003 as it relates to cannabis. He's a broker by trade and has some specific expertise in this cannabis space. So Bob, tell us how you got into the cannabis space.
It actually turned out one of my friends said, hemp's going to become legal. We should do something with it. I said, awesome. What should we do?
What should we do?
It's a new industry, right?
Right.
I mean, it had been destroyed, 80 years ago by what's his name with the newspapers. Terrible with names.
It's been a long time.
But yeah, and I said, hemp, legal, cool, crops. Hey, what could we do? And the idea was to do that, and that morphed into, what I'm doing right now.
Right. So that's where you're putting your energy primarily, is in the cannabis space today.
Cannabis real estate, cannabis business opportunity.
Perfect. So we're going to be talking about those opportunities and the unique aspects of them as it relates to a cannabis business versus a more traditional business. Yeah. Okay. So let's start out with kind of what is a business brokerage so that people understand, different from a real estate brokerage.
Sure. So a real estate brokerage can do both. In fact, a real estate brokerage can sell residential, it can sell commercial, it can sell business opportunities.
Right.
And that's what we're doing. We're selling a business opportunity. And the opportunity is the license to operate a cannabis business, to do cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, dispensary, whatever it might be. And the building may be a lease or it may be a purchase, and that would be a commercial building transaction. So it is a business opportunity.
Got it. So, and what is the value of bringing a broker into that transaction?
Well, the obvious answer is that the cannabis industry, with everyone's high hopes and dreams, tend to overvalue and inflate everything. And a broker with 20 years sort of kind of goes, really? Is that really what it's worth?
Right.
So it is truly about a fair price, expectations, but also, following the regular contractual rules, obligations of the state of California to sell a business. I don't care if it's a donut shop or a manufacturing cannabis business, you still have to follow the same rules.
Right. There's still regulations and rules
for everything.
And contractual requirements.
Correct.
And also, where are you going to sell it? Who are you going to sell it to?
Who are you going to sell it to, yes. You can't just put a sign up out front like a for sale by owner and hope for the best.
Right.
That someone's going to drive by and say, dude, I want that.
Right.
No, you have to appeal to the customer, the buyer, that is looking for that business.
So knowing where to find them.
You have to find the buyer.
And knowing how to price it.
Right.
All those different aspects.
Basic regular real estate, to be honest.
Yeah.
In a non-traditional business.
Right. But the average real estate agent's not going to walk in and manage a cannabis transaction.
And most brokerages, residential especially, that won't even allow it. They say, we just don't do it. The commercials do, some of them, but not all of them. But the answer is a residential agent has zero experience and the broker doesn't want them touching it.
Right. Right, and the liability, because of the extra layers of licensing and all of that, make it more risky than a traditional home sale from that perspective.
Correct. So your experience really comes into play where you're like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. Where do I find? There is no book written. In fact, that's our goal, is to write a book on how to do it, so that way there is actual instruction on how to go through process by process.
Right. Well, that's part of what this whole series is about, is starting to put together some baseline resources for people in order to be able to manage cannabis at all different levels of the transaction.
Right.
So we're going to go through this from a multiple different perspectives. The first perspective is going to be from the buyer's perspective, right? So on any deal, you're going to have a buyer and a seller. And so we're going to talk about, from your side, what value and what things you can be helping that buyer try to figure out when they're looking to get into the cannabis space. So we're going to start with that buyer perspective. So if I want to go into cannabis, what are my options?
Well, there's 4, as far as I'm concerned, and each one's different but similar. So you're either going to be a cultivator or a grower.
Yep.
That's your thing. You buy a farm, you do your thing. Yes, you can get a micro license that might have a building, but outdoor grow or just greenhouse grow, that's its own business. You're just going to do that. That's simpler.
Right.
Maybe you buy the land, maybe you own the land, you erect some greenhouses, you grow the flower. And that's it. It's kind of a one deal operation.
Okay.
And that's a simpler focus.
Right.
The more difficult one becomes the manufacture and the distribution. The manufacturer and distro, you're buying stuff from the farmer, right? You're taking that product, you're manufacturing it into some other product, and you're distributing it to who? Other distributors or to the dispensaries.
Right.
And that guy's got typically 2 licenses, the manufacturer and the distro, because they have to go together so you can do your job, because you have to be able to buy it from one and give it to the other. So you're the middleman, manufacturer, distro.
Right.
And while they're different, again, I put them together.
Right.
And then, of course, the dispensary is the retail side of it, and so is delivery.
Yep.
You can operate a delivery in and of itself, but every dispensary could have a delivery, and again, not everyone does. Or there's that one rare option where you've got a micro, which potentially is at least 3 licenses, but all 4, which is typically, cultivation, manufacture, distro, delivery, and a dispensary. And if you have that, you've got all the licenses together in one spot.
Right.
Not everything works that simply.
No.
Those are just kind of the outline of what you could do.
Right. So I can go to a local municipality and try and go get a license.
Yes.
Or I can go to someone who's an operating business and potentially acquire a license.
Operating business or a non-operating, the guy that actually went and leased a place or bought a place and has been holding on to it for a couple of years, applied for the license, waited for it to come through.
Right.
And now he either doesn't want to, ran out of money, or just this is too much hassle and wants to move on. And that's the opportunity.
Right.
That's the business opportunity that we're truly looking at.
Yep.
Some guys have been in doing medical forever and they want out. And there's the guys that said, yes, I'm going to do it, and just didn't do it. And they're like, you know what, pass on to somebody else.
Right. They have some equity in a license, but they're not in a position to actually
make
move
it happen.
forward.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if we're going to go with option 1, which is go try and get a license, what are we looking at?
All right, that's the longest process, so we'll go with the simple nuts and bolts. If you don't own a building right now that's in a green zone, you're probably not going to get one.
And what's a green zone?
The green zone is green, right? As long as the city has said, this particular street we'd allow, and that's the thing, they don't even allow everything on one street.
Right.
So a green zone could be a street that allows dispensary. Awesome.
Yep.
But no manufacturing, no distribution, no cultivation.
Right.
Then you could go a mile away and it's like, oh, this is all cultivation, manufacturing, distribution. So they do tend to separate. The micros are relatively rare. That's why it's kind of like you got your 2 different things. So if you own a building in a green zone, what's it green for? Is it green for a dispensary, manufacturer, distro, cultivation, or all? That's your first question.
Right.
And if you don't own it, then you have to go lease it. Now you got to find somebody with a building who wants to lease it.
Yep,
and then,
for that purpose.
For that purpose. And if that's okay with them, because they may say, nope, I don't want you in here.
Right.
They don't have to, just because they're in that area. And then lastly, now that you've got that, you get to submit for your license to the state and wait a couple of years.
Right.
And pay rent on it or whatever for the next couple of years.
Because you've got a multi-layer process for getting licensing, right? The local municipality has to approve it, and then the state has to approve it.
Correct.
And the wait times on both of those can be extensive.
Yeah, I mean, you might get the city, there's a couple cities I've talked to that said, that's cool, come on down, fill it out, we'll give it to you 30 days. And you're like, wow, that's awesome.
Right.
And most cities aren't like that, but relatively short, where the state could be anywhere from 6 months to a year minimum. And then it goes back to the city like LA right now, the phase 1s, the phase 2s, the social equities are going on 3 years.
Right.
So,
and they haven't even issued a license yet.
They haven't even issued a license. So the answer is depends on where you're at.
Yep. So that entitlement process can be very time consuming, very challenging, very expensive.
Just the carrying costs alone are the expense.
Well,
if you own the building and you're still operating your old business out of it, maybe it makes sense, but that's pretty rare.
Right.
So you've got an empty building you can't operate in that you're paying whatever per month for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Carrying costs are tremendous.
Well, and in a lot of the areas where they even are issuing licenses, they may have hit the number that they're willing to issue. So
right, and now you have a green zone building that you're not going to get a license of the second or the third issuance or phase of licensing, so you're even further down the road.
Right. Yep. Okay. So if we're going to try to forego that fun.
Yeah, we're actually like, please don't do that, because the people that did that are still waiting
and spending a lot of
money. Don't do that. Yeah.
So our alternative is an existing license, someone who's done that, been there, done that, and is either operating or non-operating, and is in a position and it has a desire to move forward.
Correct.
Right.
And they could be paper license ready and build out. Maybe they're through the fire inspection. Maybe they're through that final, okay, you can start the tenant improvements.
Right.
Or they might actually be operational, like the one that we did. They could be operational for the past year, and they're like, this isn't what we thought, or we want to move on to something else.
Right.
And that's kind of where I focus mine on,
Yep.
is not quite operational, but very close, or absolutely operational, and how can we, and they get back to the values of earlier, they get valued differently.
Yes.
And non-operational license, they're going to make 10 million, so what?
Right.
Versus an operational license that is making 10 million.
Right.
The values are hugely different, even though they're the same dispensary license.
So we're a buyer. We've got a seller who's interested in selling his license. What kind of deal are we going to structure? How are we going to try to put this together in order to make it beneficial for both sides?
Right. So basically, let's take a dispensary. I have one that's going through a process right now, and the offer is they're doing about 6.5 a year in gross sales.
Yep.
But they're a micro, so they're growing in the back, they're selling out the front.
Yep.
They got a distro as well, and a delivery, and the dispensary. They don't do any manufacturing.
Okay.
So we look at the last 12 months worth of revenue, figure out what it is that's a fair price for it based upon this, that, and the other.
Right.
But you got silly things like cost of goods sold. Well, cost of goods sold, but you grew your own stuff. I mean,
right.
There's a CPA's job is to spend hours, days, whatever it is, looking through the books. And it's like, yeah, but you get to charge yourself for it.
Yep.
Let's say we come to terms. Great, now what?
Yep.
Well, we also know that he needs some money up front to sell.
Right.
And he wants to walk away, but he needs to stay on for 6 months because you have to.
Right.
And then, you got the local, then you got the state. So I look at it as tiers. It's like the answer is yes, sign, cool, put some money in, do an operating agreement, begin to take over, transition, phase in, phase out.
Right.
When the next little phase comes through local approval, then you give the next little tranche of money, and then when the final state comes through, then of course you get that. Most of the corporations, especially the Canadians, are offering stock, so they might offer you a little bit of money, and they offer maybe a little bit of a straight note or a convertible note, and then they'll offer you some stock, and you have to decide what you would like.
Right, if that's something you're interested in.
So I kind of look at thirds, time period wise. Could be equal money, but it could just be cash, note, in stocks, or it could just be all cash. But to tell you what, $6 or $8 million all cash, just, I know people talk about that, but it just doesn't happen.
Not very often.
It just doesn't happen.
There aren't a lot of people with that kind of cash.
Right.
And the reality is financing isn't going to be an option in 99% of these cases.
No, there's no SBA loans.
Yeah.
But it is a small business, absolutely.
Yes.
You can finance the building, sure.
Potentially,
60, 70% loan to value if you get lucky. There are banks out there doing it now.
Yep.
But overall, the answer is that's why you're doing a little bit of cash, a little bit of stock, a little bit of notes, is because you don't necessarily have that entire.
Right. And you're also not going to be able to transfer it immediately.
And you can't transfer it immediately.
There's no option for
Correct.
that. Right. Okay. So that's what we're looking at if we're doing an ongoing
business
concern.
Yep.
Right. An active business. What about as we call them, a paper dispensary?
Sure.
Somebody who's gotten the paper, but isn't actually operating.
Yeah, to be honest, the numbers, let's just say LA might be, $1 million for a dispensary license. Okay, now it's affordable, but the building's empty.
Right.
There's no tenant improvements. There probably isn't any build out of any sort. There's probably been no inspection. We're not even sure plans have been submitted to the city, other than some dude wrote it on a napkin and said, "Is this cool?"
Right.
And the inspector said, "Sure, whatever." Because those aren't plans. They didn't spend that kind of money. And other guys have spent $50, $100, $250 doing all the drawings to make it feasible.
Right.
But so now you're buying a dispensary.
Yep.
That isn't operating for maybe $1 million. We'll just give it a round number.
Right.
Of which you got to spend $1 million to make it operational. Because there's nothing there.
So it's just the cash is not going to the seller; it's going to improvements and building up your system and getting everything ready to actually become functional.
Correct.
Right.
And most of the guys I've dealt with have gotten to that point. They're actually building as they go. So I'll list the property and they're like, it's empty. I'll go back in 3 months. It's like, we got walls. Why? Because they kept going. Because if it doesn't sell,
they need to make it.
They need to make it work. And if it does sell, at that point they say, well, it was $1 million, but we put $500,000 into tenant improvements, so now it's $1.5 million. Cool. You got to get your money back.
Yeah.
But if they open the door, and then they sell, $1 million worth of product, then now we have revenue to revalue the business based upon not just the license anymore or potential, but actual revenue.
Yep. And what are some of the big pitfalls, that we're seeing in the cannabis space?
Mostly it's just people's unrealistic expectations, to be honest. I mean, everyone thinks they're going to make $1 million, which they will, but it actually takes hard work.
Yeah. Huh. Any business
Any
takes
business
hard
does.
work.
You open a donut shop, you're going to be there at 3 a.m. making donuts.
Right.
You're going to sell them all.
Yeah.
But guess what? You're going to be there at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Somebody has to make the donuts every day.
Right.
So it's
and
the same thing.
A cannabis business has a lot going on. Production and staff and
everything.
All those things.
It's like running a restaurant. You've got
Yes.
50 employees all doing certain thing. You got the busboy, you got the server, you got the cook. It's the same thing. The dispensary, you got,
Right.
boom, 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 boom. But manufactured it, it's really, truly a business. And that's the point. The pitfalls are people forget that it's running a business. Don't hire your friends, don't hire your family.
Right.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understood. So if we're the buyer, what kind of due diligence are we looking to do?
Again, with the paper, not much. Make sure your state licenses are good. Make sure your locals are good. Check with the city to make sure there's permits and this, that, and the other. Parking, all those.
Yes.
Make sure all the basics of how to open a business are done. Again, if it's operating like that one I do have, it's, I want to see your last 2 years with the books. I want to go down to the city and make sure you paid your taxes. Check with the state and see if there's any outstanding tax liabilities that may come back because you forgot to pay your bills.
The same thing you would do with any business
Correct.
sale. The franchise tax board, the EDD, all those things need to be properly vetted. Right. The transaction should be going through an escrow company.
Oh, absolutely. And back to the escrow, there is, I call it white money and green money, right? We don't do black money. That just doesn't work. But white money and green money, it is what it is.
Yep.
That money has to go. You can't just bring a duffel bag and drop it off and say, here you go.
Right.
So escrow is escrow, contracts are contracts, just like you buy a house. Both sides agree to the terms of a contract, you put it in escrow with a neutral third party.
Yep.
Like her. And, and it goes through, everybody signs off, you have your 30, 45, 60-day due diligence to review the books and the state licenses. And then the money, there is a deposit and it's put in there.
Yep.
And if it's green money, then you have it deposited to a bank that accepts green money.
Right.
And that money is then wired to where it needs to go. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, most of the Canadian corps that are buying stuff, they've got Canadian money.
Yeah.
So it's white money. It didn't go anywhere. It's just raised money.
But it is going to go through a banking system.
It has to go through a banking system. And I absolutely mandatorily say it has to go through escrow.
Yeah.
It just has to.
Right. So we talked about funding. So now let's look at it from a seller's perspective. So now I'm the seller and I'm hiring you to sell my business and I want you to get me the highest and best price for my dispensary.
As well you should.
Which is worth millions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do you maximize the value for the seller?
Honestly, the best thing is that if you've been making money, you've been making money.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing how that works.
If you've been losing money, it isn't the same. But that is my job. It is to figure out, it's like, look, man, if you're making $1 million a year in sales, it's worth $1 million. Well, why? Well, what's your profit margin? 20%. Everybody calls me the first question, what's the EBITDA? Who cares? Did you look at the books? No. Then how do you know the EBITDA is right because of all the...
Right.
Take the time to do a forensic accounting job to see what it is.
Yep.
So just making stuff up. If you make $1 million in sales and you have a 20% net profit, then you made 200 grand.
Right.
That's not a bad year.
No.
I'm sure people will be very happy making 200 grand a year.
Yeah.
Unless that's just not a real number.
Right.
Did you pay yourself? Did you pay this? Did you do that?
Like any business.
Like any business, absolutely. Yep. So so to maximize the value for the seller is to verify that all those things are real.
That when your buyer goes to look at it, it's going to match up.
That he doesn't just say, oh my God, you lied about everything. Right. Yes, you have books, but guess what? And we're going to offer you $50,000 because you're losing money.
I will say, for cannabis businesses, having books in itself is a good thing.
That's true. It is quite interesting to actually say, do you have books? They go, sure.
Yes.
Any other books? No. Cool.
No. Right.
Those are the ones you, okay, great. I'm going to give them something smarter. Let them go over them. And yes.
So also some of the other things, making sure your team is able to work without you so that when you sell,
that's the transition part.
The buyer's in a position, they've got a good team behind them.
Most of the buyers ask me, they say, hey, is everyone going to stay on? And I've already asked the owner, and the answer is, who's going to stay on? Everyone except you. Right. Cool. But I'll stay here for 3 to 6 months. Why? To make sure everyone's cool.
Correct.
But my manager's going to stay. All the employees love their jobs.
Yeah.
Great. Because the people coming in don't really want to change the staff.
Yes.
Because the customers know the staff, because they know the area. That they're in to make it better.
Right.
They're in to franchise it, make it make it more pretty, make it more, add more delivery or bring in more product lines. So they're trying to increase the revenue. The answer is, hey, employees, you're already here. Can we do this? Is that cool? Yes.
Yes.
So the answer is yes.
Buy-in
We
from
really want to.
employees is very important.
Absolutely,
And
100%.
I think in this industry, the people who choose to work in it have some connection to it.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a closer connection to the customer than in some other industries.
And again, a local dispensary probably does have that same customer coming in,
Yep.
every week or month for the past years. They're going to say, hey,
Right.
where'd everybody go? And that might turn off the customers.
Yeah.
So very important to keep them.
And also the financial controls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in a cash business, more than anything, we want to make sure the cash is going where it's supposed to
Where it's
go.
supposed to go. Yep.
Yes, so that's something to think about. So, how are we going to value it? What are with the obviously income valuation? We
Mm-hmm.
kind of talked about that. Is that the primary valuation for an ongoing?
Yeah, for an ongoing business, to be honest, that is truly you. Again, for a dispensary, that's a little bit easier because I got gross
Yep.
revenues and this and that. And it's usually about 1 times rev. I mean, if you're doing
Got
$6
it.
million, it's worth about 6 as long as your EBIT is 20 and it's legit. I mean,
Right.
that's the answer. Well, someone will say, well, I pay 5 times net. Great, 5 times 200 and you're doing it's the same.
It's the same. Funny how
So,
that works.
yeah, so if you're at 20%
Yep.
net,
Right.
5 times 2 is 100, so 100% of gross
Right.
revenue is the same number.
Yep.
So I look at that. But, like we did that deal in NoHo,
Yeah.
they were just buying 2 licenses,
Right.
not the product, not the line, not the whatever. They were taking the machinery and they were taking over the lease space. So
Right.
in that case, it was kind of a base value on what a value of a license might be as a manufactured distro.
Right.
And we gave it a value of 400 each. And this is North Hollywood, just for specifics. So LA County, manufacturer 400, distro 400, ongoing operation. So everything was working. You didn't have to come in and do any
Right.
kind of improvements. And it was 800 grand. And that's it. Because
So
that's what it's worth.
That's the asset valuation
That's the
versus
asset
an
val-
income
Correct.
valuation.
So that's the
Right.
asset part of it. So the income is, we can do that. I did sell a delivery at 60 or 70% because deliveries are a little bit tougher. And that was in
Interesting.
San Francisco. So I did about 60 to 7% of gross.
Right.
They took it.
Yeah.
So that one closed as well.
Right.
But that was a little bit less than one where the dispensary is at 1. And then again, for the NoHo one we just did, that was simply, asset value.
Right.
What is a license worth? Almost paper because
Yep.
really you're not taking over any product line. So 400 and 400 is 800.
Right. And with the one you said, the dispensary, that's more of a market. What is the market going to bear for that kind of valuation? So we're going to be looking at these, that's again why the broker is so important.
Yeah.
You're going to look at them deal by deal and make the right valuation based upon what the circumstances are in that given situation.
You sell a house in a particular tract of homes, and there's 100 homes, and half of them have sold over the past 5 years,
Right.
and they're all the same exact square footage. You get a pretty straight line appreciation value of
Yep.
what the heck the neighborhood's worth.
Right.
No such thing in cannabis.
No.
It just, there are no comps. In fact, where do you go for comps? I mean, I put all my stuff on LoopNet, Biz, Buy, Sell, and the MLS so it gets
Yep.
out to the world, but there's no comps.
Right.
But something funny, just the comp idea was we sold the
Yep.
one in North Hollywood. We have one in Burbank that has a building.
Okay.
So the building I valued X, and then the licenses he wanted 1.5. Same licenses, right?
Yep.
So I called him up. I said, hey, I just closed the one North Hollywood a whole mile from you.
Right.
For 800, he goes, I guess the building's 1 and the licenses are now 8, so that's 1.8, lower the price from 2.5 to 1.8.
Right.
So my comp was my own sale
Yes.
to another seller that I had once I had it better because they both wanted 1.5 for their
course.
licenses. Now I've got a
Right.
closed sale, and the answer was fine, lower it to 1.8.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
doing my own comps.
And that's going to happen.
We're creating them.
Right? I mean, that's what's going to happen. I mean,
Yep.
this is all so brand new.
Yeah.
So if we're going to try to market this thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? What kind of marketing methods are we using?
Well, for me, I treat it as traditional real estate. So I cooperate with every broker, meaning I put it on the MLS.
Okay.
It goes out and gets syndicated throughout, the world. I mean, the MLS goes to everywhere.
Right.
My listings end up on Zillow. Not exactly a house, but you know
That's
what?
pretty funny.
I get calls.
I bet
I
you
do.
do.
I get a call from Zillow saying I want to open a business, which is awesome. Nothing wrong with
Interesting.
that. But we put it on LoopNet,
Yep.
which is the business end of it, commercial
Yep.
brokerage side, which is CoStar. And then they have a sister, which is business only, and it's
Okay.
called Biz Buy Sell. So
Okay.
if it has real estate, it can go on LoopNet CoStar.
All right.
And if it's a business opportunity, just a license with a lease, then
Right.
it goes to Biz Buy Sell. Point is, those also syndicate, not very well, but if you're a commercial broker, that's where you look.
Got it.
So now there is a place on the MLS for everyone in the world, but there's also LoopNet Biz Buy Sell.
Okay.
And that's where I post them.
Got it.
So they're out there.
Yep.
That's traditional, but I also cooperate with every broker from whatever commercial or whatever brokerage. It's like, sure, here's my stuff, please go sell.
Right.
Bring me a buyer, I split my commission with you. That's cool. We also have a list of everyone we've ever done business with.
Right.
Every licensee in California, every hedge fund or Canadian corp that we've talked to.
Yep.
And we send out an email every single week of our new listings or our successes or our whatever. So we hit the traditional, MLS real estate related syndicatable websites.
Yep.
But then we also direct email to the people that we know in
Your
the business.
database.
Our database.
Right.
Right.
Perfect. And I'm sure that's growing.
And it grows
rapidly.
every week. Absolutely. It's like, I got a call from a girl when I was sitting in the car here just a minute ago, and she's like, I'm from Santa Clara. I'm like, awesome. She goes, I have somebody who wants to buy this building. I go, great. And I said, email me. Why? So I can add you to my database so you can get the email next week to show you what I got for sale.
Right.
Because she didn't know where to look.
Well,
but she found me anyways.
That's one of the things with this is, whereas residential real estate and even commercial is relatively local, you're looking at statewide business on a cannabis business.
San Diego to Eureka
right.
is my range right now. So the answer is California.
Yeah. It's a much broader than a traditional brokerage.
Correct.
So now we've got a plan, we've got a listing price,
right.
We got a potential buyer.
Right.
How are we going to vet the buyer as the agent for the seller?
Yeah, that's the toughest part because they don't want to tell you anything, right? No, I mean, we do the kind of same thing. An initial LOI tells you who they are and what. Then it's like, are they publicly traded or a big corp? Great, I can check that out. They got 150 million assets. I'm not going to ask them to see their savings account statement.
Right.
But if someone goes, hey, Bob, blah, 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 I got $1 million. Great, show it to me.
Right.
Don't send me a picture under your mattress. Just actual. Do you have it in a real bank? No, that's cool. Do you have this? You got to be able to verify that funds. And it's no different than anything else. You're verifying what they say.
Right.
It might be a little more difficult. But.
And maybe putting a plan in place to get the money into a...
Right, and then part two is like, do you have that $1 million to buy? Yeah, where is it? Okay, great. Then we talk to you again and we say, hey, come on down, get the armored car, pick up the money, drop it, count it, make it verified, and let's get it in a safe place.
Which is doable.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's where we're at least in this process is... There are banks who will knowingly and willingly take cannabis-related funds, and we have a process for taking that cash, putting it into the banking system, and allowing us to complete and move those transactions forward.
Yep.
So let's talk about post-sale consideration. So now we've sold. What is our buyer going to be thinking about post-sale? So.
Wow, it depends. Again, each one's different, right?
Yep.
So his mom and pop buying it and they want to do their own little thing. That's usually what I'm selling, to be honest. I'm not having many mom and pops buy. I'm having mom and pops sell.
Got it.
But what's different is the Canadian corp, as an example, will come in and say, well, do you want to stay mom and pop except be a part of a franchise?
Right.
So they're going to franchise the deliveries. They're going to franchise the dispensaries. Maybe not the manufacturer distro.
Right.
But dispensary and delivery could be franchised to the point of like, you're going to be on 1-800-Cannabis. And your zip code's 12345.
Got it.
Every call that comes in for pizza is going to go to your delivery
if you're
part of our franchise.
Right.
And that's what the franchise model is that I've seen thus far for the mom and pops who want to stay in it. They can stay on, get a salary, get a regular job, get help, but also have some financial backing and marketing, which is different than what they were doing all by themselves.
Who'd have thought you could have a cannabis franchise?
And they're already started. They've already started. So the answer is yes.
That I in what we're seeing a lot of the buyers being large hedge funds and large fund sources, because again, buying an active license, the dollar amounts are pretty high.
Correct.
So the average person isn't going to be able to do that. So from moving forward, how are we going to successfully keep our cannabis business going? What are you
and me or them?
We're going to stay busy.
We're going to stay busy.
I'm not too worried.
I'm not worried about us.
So, but what are the keys to success?
Again, we're back to basics, and it really is keep it simple, silly. You're running a business. If it doesn't make sense, it's not going to work. So you got to train your people how to do stuff. You got cash coming in. You got to make sure you got systems in place to make sure it doesn't get lost.
Right.
You got your staff. You got your customer service people won't come back. It's no different. It's just a different product. Again, back to donuts. You like the donuts, you go buy them every day. They taste terrible, you never go back. I mean, That's it.
Well, and you want a consistent donut. You don't want one
Absolutely.
donut one day and a different donut the next day,
Yep.
right?
And
So-
we'll make fun of Starbucks. I mean, I love Starbucks. I go there almost every day.
Yep.
But when I want a really good cup of coffee, I do go somewhere else. That's a good, but consistently, Starbucks every single day will
You
give
know
me
what
the
you're
same
gonna
thing
get.
no matter what, and I
Right.
get the same people and the same attitude and the same we used to call it the Nordstrom experience, remember?
Yes.
Now it's the Starbucks experience. But it is.
Right.
It is. That's exactly what you want.
Exactly.
In
So
running
you go
a
for
business.
that. Right.
Yep.
So takeaways. What are
Uh-huh.
the key things to buy or sell a business? What are the things you really gotta get? Representation,
Yes.
right? Getting a good broker who knows the space and is able to get you the best price, one way or the other,
Correct.
depending
Well,
upon
at
the
least
situation.
a reasonable expectation of what it is that you can
Right.
get. And we're back to if you get an offer, that's probably the one and only one you're going to get. So no matter what you wanted,
Right.
sometimes you just have to accept that that's all you're going to get. Now you may either keep running it and do it
Right.
yourself, or you may say, you know what, I'm out of here, that's cool.
I'm ready and I'm ready to
Yep.
go. Right. Associating in the right support staff
Yes.
and professionals. Right.
Absolutely.
You know, not every accountant, not every attorney, not every business consultant is going to be ready, willing, and able to work in this space.
No, and that's something, just as a complete side note, is that if someone asks you for money to do the job that we're doing up front, don't. Just, you don't
Yes.
charge money to do something you haven't done yet. You get paid after you complete the job. So
Yep.
if I'm going to advertise your business for sale, give me $5,000.
Right.
No,
Yep.
say no.
So
You don't pay for services. I mean, you pay for your hourly fee once you expend the hour, right? I mean, it's you pay for your expert help.
yes.
Yes.
Well,
so it's important. Never pay upfront fees for anything.
Because this is a new and growing industry, there are people coming in who are not scrupulous.
Correct.
Who
And that's why I'm saying, watch
will-
out for them.
will
They will
take
take your money
advantage.
and then
Yeah.
deliver nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then again, I think the last piece is the financials, making sure both on the seller side and the buyer side,
Right.
the financials are in proper order to make the deal work.
Correct.
Yeah.
Really
All right.
is.
So those are the keys. So, Bob, I want you to tell me how people can reach you if they
Sure.
have questions.
I'm super easy. I don't have my cell phone on me, or I'd show it to you, but they made me take it. No, I'm easy. To be honest, there's two ways to get a hold of us. It's super simple. CannaGrowthPartners.com is our email. At Gmail is our email, and CannaGrowthPartners.com is our website. It's the same. Or call me, 949-500-1740. I will pick up the phone pretty much all day, every day. And if not, text me. But that is my business, so it truly is
Perfect.
easiest way to get a hold of me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming to this
course.
episode and
Thank you.
helping us out. We're so glad that our audience also was here for this Capitalizing on Cannabis. Please go to our YouTube page, like this post, make sure that you are following us if you have an interest in this space, and we'll be back soon. Thank you very much.